What is up, everybody? Dak here, and I'm back with an update regarding the big blue box. It's now been in the car for about 6 months, and if you've got good enough eyes or the phone's got a high enough resolution, you can probably see that the back of this car's super dirty. It's got a worn piston ring, so it likes to fart out oil. The 6th order is, it's not been touched for 6 months, so it's effectively done for the time being. You can see that I've currently got the 2 port plugs in there and there. So you can see I've got one of the port plugs in right here. So right now it is tuned to 17 Hertz roughly. I've got some graphs somewhere, I might put them up in the video, if not then there. You can see I've got the 2 other plugs in. So right now it is in proper 6th order mode. If I want it to change it to 4th order mode, what I can do is take out those 2 plugs, put one of them in there, and have all these 4 open. Then it becomes a 4th order 70 litres tuned, 210 ported, so yeah, 1 to 3 tuned to 50 Hertz. I've done a wee bit of testing with that, not enough yet though. It didn't seem very effective, but I think I really need to get an SPL meter. Also, apologies for road noise. It is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but it's a Sunday, so I don't know why I'm getting rush hour sound. Yeah, right now it's in low tuned 6th order mode. Under there are the amplifiers, which I'll put another picture. I know I've got a picture of them up, so I'll put them up, and you can see what's going on down there. You can see the ground is right here on the baby seat harness, but does the job quite well. I've tested the voltage to the amps, and the voltage to the amps is pretty good, so there's no problem there. What else to say? Oh yeah, these things here, they were turned by putting this threaded rod into the chuck of a drill and spinning about 3000 RPM, and I essentially used a belt sander going the opposite direction to lathe them, so they are kind of tapered to match the profile of the flare. So they do quite well, they seal perfectly. And this one here too, I'm pretty sure seals perfectly. I think if it didn't seal perfectly, it'd eventually work its way in and out, but it just kind of sits in there and doesn't really do anything, so I'm pretty sure it's working properly. But yeah, anyway, I'll talk about the proper specs itself. So low tune 17, high tune 52, or thereabouts, I think. Crossover with the front speakers is at 72 Hertz, so just 70 Hertz, sorry. Down here I've got 3 amplifiers. You can see those 2 there. I'll probably put the picture up already, I'll put it up again. So these 2 amplifiers down the bottom are 2 times 150 watts each, or 500 watts bridged into 4 ohms each. And I've got a dual 4 ohm sub, so they're each running 500 watts into the sub, so I've got 1000 watts going to the sub RMS, which is that one right there. Audio might sound a bit weird right now, but I want to have it still up on the screen. But yeah, that's a 15-inch driver, dual 4 ohm. Once again, it's a 500 watt RMS driver that I run at 1000 watts RMS. It used to get smelly. This box, it doesn't seem to get as smelly as the old box, which is good. I think due to the way the ports are loaded, the impedance rise is a bit higher, so less power goes through the sub, something like that, and it moves more so it can cool itself better. Impedance matching, it's kind of freaky, but yeah, that is a custom made by me, because the old dust cap split in half. Fiberglass dust caps, proper fiberglass dust cap, and it's not bad. I know all this has been covered in previous videos on the sub, but this is kind of like a system show-off video, so people don't really need to understand the background context behind it. But yeah, that the old dust cap split in half, and I put that one on. It's extremely light. Feels like it only weighs like 10 grams or something. It's extremely strong. It's super strong. The old one was like flat plastic, and you could bend it with your fingers, no problem. This one, I'm pretty sure I could whack it with a hammer, and if it was on a flat surface and I hit the top of the dome with a hammer, it wouldn't crack. It's insanely strong, and it's just Sikatech gripped on, which is a general all-purpose glue. It's really strong. I really like it. but I think I'm digressing off the amps. The third amp, which is the one up the top, is a 4x 110 watt RMS. Oh, they're all class AB, by the way. 4x 110 watt RMS that I'm currently only using 2 channels of for the front. It's pretty good. It does 2x 350 watts RMS into 4 ohms when bridged, which is quite a lot of power at 4 ohms for a single amp. But yeah, class AB, so more focused at higher voltage, higher impedance than low voltage, high current, low impedance sort of thing. One more thing to note though before I go into the front of the car is you can probably see that now the box is about 6 months old. I did do, it essentially ended up being 2 layers of primer, 2 layers of, 2 coats of the blue paint, and then another good thick coat of the clear coat. But you can see that the paint's kind of peeled. It's harder to tell when you stand back, but the seam where the rear baffle joins onto the rest of the box has now become obvious again, which is a bit unfortunate. So I'm really thinking I'm just going to go back to carpeting it. That's another thing I want to get the SPL meter for. I want to test before and after I carpet to see if it affects the output at all. In theory, it won't affect the output at all, although 2 things could happen. One is it could, just that extra 5mm of carpet could constrict it just slightly more and just make it slightly less efficient. And 2, it could absorb some waves, but in theory the base waves are too long wavelength for those short hairs to absorb much energy at all out of it, so it should be fine. Another thing I want to do is all under here, I want to block up this gap here. Right now it's still there because I've already had a crack at blocking it, but for some reason it's a lot more complex shape than it looks. I don't know why. But another thing I might do is just next time I take the box out, just make a false floor for it that covers the whole thing, in order to, then that'd of course cover that gap up too, but that means I can more easily take boxes out and put boxes in to test them, including things like the horn, so I can put it in. The horn before was just kind of sitting in here and the amps were mounted to each other in the corner, but now that I've got all the amps down in the spare wheel well, I can put a floor in here and they won't obstruct anything, and yeah, it'd be pretty well back to normal except the spare tyres on the back seat. But now I think I'm going to go back to the front of the car and show off what's in there. Alright, so now I'm back in the front of the car, and as you can see, no aftermarket head unit, which is pretty uncommon for a sub build. But instead of that, I've got this right here, Mini DSP 2x4 HD. So this is a DSP, of course, Mini DSP, and this is quite a useful unit. It's a lot smaller than the regular ones, which have, I think, 4 inputs, 10 outputs, and pretty well the same internal function. It's just more channels. This one though I went with because it sounds really good. It's got very good reviews. I didn't really think I needed the 10 channels, but well, kind of right now, I think I prefer 6. Let's say I don't even use one of the channels. I'll talk about that in a sec. You can see I've got an optical cable here. I've got 2 RCA cable inputs. This also has, right there, is a USB input, and you can see right there, infrared. This thing is essentially the main hub for the system. So I've got this remote here, I've got source. If I had the head unit on, I can of course choose between the different outputs, FM, AM, CD, yep, the kind of basic ones. And this one here, yeah, the volume knob does stuff and everything. It outputs though, instead of to the speakers, it outputs, because I've got the amp in the back, to a speaker level to line level converter. The speaker level to line level converter is right behind the head unit. Just crammed it right back in there. This is a big head unit too, because it's a 6 CD stacker, but I managed to find space beyond there. And it comes all the way back, and these 2 cables right here are where the head unit inputs. So they come in there. This optical cable, however, this is something else. This cable right here is, if you recognize, it's a lightning to HDMI to lightning. And what this does right here is this cable plugs into, say, an iPad, which I might eventually do the dash mod, but kind of the more I think about it, the more I'm hesitant to do it, because I actually listen to CDs, believe it or not. So I don't really want to take out the head unit or modify it. But maybe if I find a second one, I might start to do some mods to integrate a head unit to the dash. But yeah, I'll talk about this first, because this is an actual thing that exists. It's tangible. It's not an idea. This right here, HDMI cord. What this does is the HDMI cord actually takes audio and video from the iPad and sends it along this cable into the snake pit. Dear God, this thing, I don't know how to make it any cleaner. I gotta be completely honest. And yes, that is lamp cord. And yes, when I did this, I just spent $300 on that, and I actually didn't have a lot of money for this, so please don't blame me. It's just, it works, and I don't want to alter it while it still works. But just to describe what's happening in here, it's really hard to see. That thing right down the bottom, which you can see a bit of a HDMI logo and V2.0, that there is a HDMI audio extractor. So what that does is, if you plug a HDMI cable into it, and then you have another one running out of it to your TV, for example, say you've got like a DVD player, what that does is it extracts the audio signal out of the HDMI cable. So the digital TV signal, the video signal goes to the TV and you can watch it. But if you've got a surround sound and you've only got a DVD player with HDMI out, which is actually pretty damn common these days, if you even buy a video player, actually, cross. And you can take out optical or analog, and you can see this cable right here. This is where I take the optical out of that. It's essentially, it's a way of keeping a completely digital signal all the way from an iPad to the output of the DSP, meaning that instead of a standard function of a DSP is, say, to convert analog to digital, and then it messes with the digital, and then it converts digital back to analog. But with this, all it is digital in, messes with the digital, analog out. So I skip the analog to digital converter and any noise interference that'd be amplified before that, and it should be the cleanest possible signal. So that's anyway the theory behind that, and that's why it goes HDMI to optical to, yeah, it's a big mess, but it works quite well. Anyway, yeah, all goes into the DSP, and the DSP sends it out the back. That circuit board right there is a 12 volt to 12 volt buffer kind of converter thing for the DSP, and all that does is it removes all the noise from the line. So if there's any alternator noise, or those amps are kicking interference back in from their switching power supplies, that filters it all, so I get a kind of supposedly a cleaner sound. I reckon it'd probably sound fine without it, but I got it just to have it. And also that thing there has a remote turn on, so I can use it just like an amplifier with a remote turn on, and in fact it outputs a remote turn on, so that board in there actually turns on the rear amps. The way that turns on is it's got a constant power going to it, and it's got a power coming from the ignition, just like kind of a regular amp, and it outputs, yeah, you can see those two right there on this side go up to the DSP, and there's a few connectors on the back, like that yellow wire is the one that turns on the amps in the back. I think you can also see right here that I've got a volume knob because of the way the amps are set up. Because I've got two, I can't just use one of the knobs that came with them to change the signal. I need to use something that controls both at once, which is why I've got this knob. Yeah, now I'll talk about what's happening back here. These two connectors are left and right for the front channels, This one is one of the subs, this is the other sub. I had a bit of a problem with this. The way that the amps work in the back is they sum the left and right. So if one of the cables going to them breaks, even when they're bridged, it will drop the signal by half the voltage, which is 6 dB less. So one of these cables somewhere, I'm not sure where, haven't had time to check yet, has stopped working. I'll check that once I take the sub out next too. But all I've done is I unplugged it because it was kind of connecting and disconnecting. It sounded rumbly. So I just disconnected it completely and boosted this signal by 6 dB. So it was kind of like a bit of redundancy I had. And yeah, this is split, so it's not like 1 amp is each connector does its own amplifier. They're both Y split, so that's all good. And they both have the exact same signal. It was kind of built-in redundancy, so I haven't missed out on anything due to one of them breaking. So another thing I'll talk about is this box back here. You can see a bit of rubbish. This is a used car, but this is just a battery box that I made. I don't really use it because I couldn't be bothered buying a second battery. I think I might end up putting a capacitor in here or something, just to smooth out the power. I really like to get the that Maxwell capacitor with the 6 cells, although I'd probably work it down to 5, so instead of a 500 farad, it'd be a 600 farad. Yeah, capacitors are kind of weird, but yeah, that's all this does. There is space for a second battery, and I do occasionally, say when I'm going camping, put the second one in, just in case the battery goes flat or something, just have a bit more reserve. But I sometimes put the other car battery, the old one, the old car battery in this car, when it stopped being able to reliably start it, I just took it out and kept it, and yeah, occasionally put it in. It does help out with the voltage a bit, putting the second battery in, but I don't really have it in because it's kind of more of a nuisance than anything. And I should, that's actually live right now, that thing right there. It's dodgy, I just leave it in the bucket in the ground somewhere else. Yeah, safety first. I'll also swap that over to Anderson at some point. I really should. A lot of these mods I did the car before I had a job. But now I've got a job, I don't really have a lot of excuse for messy cables and live cables. But yeah, now I suppose I'll talk about the front stage, which is the 2 speakers. I currently have no speakers in the back doors for 2 reasons. 1, because they all died, and 2, because I kind of prefer the sound stage of 2 speakers alone in the front. So I've got, these are usually 5x7s, but I made adapter rings out of MDF for them, which I did make a video. I could upload that at some point. Leave a like if you want me to actually upload that video, about how to make adapter rings. They're very simple. Now, I've got 6.5 in that door, and 6.5 in this door. They're both coaxial. These tweeters both still worked, and I decided to leave them in. I think I pointed the coaxial tweeters away. Regardless of doing that, though, this system currently, it's got some problems with it. Okay, it sounds very good. These front door speakers, I went with better quality ones, like standard ones that you get from, say, Super Cheap, which is an audio chain store in Australia. Around $40. These ones were 130, I think. Oh, actually, they might have been like 180 or something. Yeah, I can't remember specifically, but they were fairly expensive. They were a lot more expensive than kind of your standard, but that's because of Careful Life code and that. They sound pretty good, except they're a bit harsh. I need to take down the treble a bit. I did EQ the system on the DSP, and I spent ages EQing it too. And I got it to a point where it did sound pretty good, and it looked very flat, but the tweeters are just a bit harsh. One of the biggest problems with this car right now is that tweeter over there, that bus, when this window is up, it kind of angles across, it bounces off the glass and back into my ear. And that tweeter over there actually ends up being louder to my right ear than that tweeter just there, which is a real problem with the stereo imaging. This car usually images really well, but it sounds way better with the windows down than up, just due to the echoes, which is a real nuisance. When I try to work out how to fix it, I might put some sort of, you can see in some high-end speakers they put like a grill over the front of the tweeter just to help with dispersion. I might try to do that just to get rid of the beaming. I also could angle the tweeter more towards my left ear, and if I angle both tweeters in, then it should make it a bit louder, but I'd still do the effect of aiming this tweeter at that ear and that tweeter at my ear, rather than, right now they're straight across, and rather than pointing them straight at the closest, or straight at the closest passenger. So yeah, that's the only real problem this system's got right now. I should fix that, but other than that, it's fantastic. It does the full range, and I'll do a demo now. But yeah, it does the entire extended range of 20k. It does no problem, and it goes all the way down to 16 hertz flat. 16 hertz flat, with very, very little variation, especially after I've EQ'd it. Like this thing here, it's amazing. Time alignment too is incredible. I've got it time aligned. I've got two presets on it. The first one, preset 1, is time aligned for the driver and EQ'd and leveled. So this door right here is a bit quieter, and that one there is say 0, and this one like -2 dB, as it's a bit closer, just to even it out. And also I've got I think, I'm trying to remember, I think it's 9 millisecond delay on that door, 7 millisecond delay on this door, and then the bass, by the time the bass arrives from the back, it's all in sync. So yeah, that sounds really good. When the sub's at about a quarter volume, the system sounds incredibly blended. There's no way you can tell the sub's on at all. Like the 70 hertz crossover too, it's really hard to tell unless there is a 70 hertz tone. You can't really hear anything specifically coming from the back, other than when you crank it, you can hear some rattles coming from the back. Now, one more thing actually I'll talk about right now regarding the mini DSP. And I know this is a bit of a rambling video, but there's a lot of information to get through. This remote right here is the only thing that controls the mini DSP, unless you've got a laptop plugged into it, in which case you can do some things, but not everything. This remote's pretty well everything. That button doesn't do anything. Mute, I don't actually use that often. Now, the volume on this is a bit fiddly, especially too when I'm driving. It's good though that I leave it in this tray here. And remember, when I'm using the iPad, this is the only volume I've got for the mid and front. This does the sub, but this is the only one I've got for the front. Now, the DSP sometimes doesn't pick up on the signal, so I've got to like wave it until it syncs up with the infrared and kind of discovers it's real. Sometimes I've got to press it a few times to get it to work, and even that's the thing, I find it's pretty well about the same reliability forward as it is pointing it straight backward. So difference between doing that and doing that is pretty well the same. So I just aim it forward all the time, and it's about 70% reliable. The really annoying thing is when I really want to turn the volume down, and it turns it up. Even though I'm pressing the down arrow, sometimes it gets louder, and that cheeses the living hell out of me. It's extremely annoying. I think one thing I'd really like to do, though, regarding this is I'm very tempted to, you can see some of these functions could be, like volume could be mapped on. Mute is already on there. Mode can be source, and then I can just do preset 1 and 2. So 3 and 4, I'm not really sure what I could do. Cruise control, very nice. I'm going to touch those, but these ones I could potentially map them onto, and this is just something that I've had an idea for. The mini DSP's got remappable infrared, so I could put like a module, an infrared beamer onto it, and then I could wire up the switches of that thing to here, so I could control it all from here, and in theory too, because the infrared sender and receiver are right next to each other, it'd be more reliable, and it also means I don't have to pick up a remote while I'm driving through a roundabout or something, which I'm tempted to do all the time, just to change the volume whenever I want. And in a manual car too, often I'm doing this, yeah, this sort of setup. I don't know, I'm safe, I haven't crashed at all or anything, I've never lost control. Don't worry. Yeah, what else to mention? So, yeah, that's one thing. Another thing that I've been thinking about doing to it, regarding the box in the back, is, I did mention the carpeting. I've been thinking about eventually, oh, sorry if I've got wobbly hand. I've been thinking about just going, the plans I eventually want to do for this car is the front stage of speakers to be something like, been having a look, 2, potentially 3-way setup, with Focal kind of good speakers, like the FLAC speakers. I think I've heard some sound demos of those, and I quite like the sound of them. So I think I might put those in the front. In the rear doors, I'm thinking, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. I was originally thinking of putting like the super efficient Def Bonts Arnold speakers in there, and some horn tweeters, just so I can open the rear doors and blast out music to the world. Those things are insanely efficient speakers, 100 dB. But I think I might not do that, as this sub works best with the boot lid closed and the rear door closed and the front doors open. So it'd effectively it'd be a bit useless to open up the rear doors to play music, because the bass would be drowned out. So what I'm thinking of doing is actually, and in another video I'll talk about speak-on connectors, I'm going to swap over the connector on the sub to a speak-on, so when I put the horn in here I can just connect straight up to it. But I'm also thinking about in between, essentially the big main cable that runs from the amps that comes down onto the carpet. I'm thinking down there, intercepting it and having a tap out for the speak-on, with speak-ons on it rather, so I can connect the array speakers I've got to it. So that way I can just run cables out, and then if I've got the horn in the car, I've essentially got a portable PA set up, and when I'm done then I can just unplug the PA speakers and plug back in the front speakers so I can very easily run a kind of a system off it, like a PA style system, which would be quite cool. So that's another thing I'm thinking of doing. Eventually I'd like to upgrade the system to 10,000 watt. I think that'll be like the goal of this system, to within 5 years get it to 10,000 watts. I currently think of doing 3 15s in a 6th, having a big slot port down the bottom, Series 6 by way, and then having another slot port in the enclosure and having the subs magneted up. So big chamber up the top, and then it kind of comes down. And that'd be a 2-to-1 instead of the 3-to-1 right now. So it'd be 180 litres in the rear and 90 litres in the front, and a big slot down the bottom, and then the sound comes all the way up. So it's like a big scroll, kind of like a tapped horn too. But yeah, I think I'll do a quick demo of this, and yeah, that'll be it. Okay, I've now got 16 Hz running, and it's only really audible when I'm right next to the glass here at its current volume. But you can probably see that twitching right there, the newspaper twitching. Yeah, just due to the nature of 16 Hz, I need to close up the car, except for either that window with the window up just a bit, or this window as it's got that kind of shroud thing on it. I can leave this one all the way down. I'll turn it all the way up now, and you can see right now that the head unit's on FM, whereas I'm currently running 16 Hz off the iPad. Okay, I'll go back to 16 as it actually wasn't turned all the way up. That's another thing annoying about this. It's hard to tell where the volume's actually at. Oh, it's gone. Yeah, 16 hertz is very good. It's very good. So go up to 20 now. Try 25. 25 is starting to get higher. Yeah, less air comes through. It's just a lot of vibration. It is very loud in the car, but at that frequency, it's actually louder if both windows are open. If I open this window, more air should even move through that window. God, the boot lid goes ballistic at that frequency. I might actually have to reinforce the boot lid too. I've currently got it tightened down, so you've really got to slam it before it'll latch. Yeah, I could hear, might hear some noise. It's a lot of vibration. I think I might need to do like a Johnny K or something and just run bolts through the boot into the sub box to to try to brace it. Yeah, this thing's loud. Like for 1,000 watts, it can do a hair trick. And yeah, that's the thing. It's all about the enclosure design. If I'd like to make some suggestions about somebody wanting to make a similar box, I'd say it's this type has really worked well for me. As in, this one I really want to test series aligned a bit more, but this is parallel. The ports are right down the bottom, and it's kind of got to come up and over the box like a quasi horn to make it into the cabin. So you can see, I know it's a very dusty screen and the torch has turned itself off, but you can see it's kind of, the sound has to come all the way up and over, and by the time it comes up and over, then onto the back seat, it's kind of like a horn expansion. Yeah, other than a sound quality demo, which I'll have to do later with a better microphone, that's pretty well the whole system. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'm pretty sure I've covered just about everything. I'll look forward to more updates, probably 6 months in the future, as uni's just started up again, and I wanted to get this out before I'm back at uni. Anyway, yeah, see ya.